afternoon. Today is Sunday, the 10th of April, 2022. I'm Brock Jennings.
And I'm Peter Clark.
And this is Intercontinental Media. And what are we talking about today, Peter?
We are talking about Psycho, a classic Alfred Hitchcock movie.
A classic Alfred Hitchcock film, which I myself have seen, 2 or 3 times now. And you hadn't seen this one before.
No, this was my first time seeing it. I've seen a lot of the important scenes in it, the sort of clips and things like that, but never the movie on a whole.
Well, I saw the movie on whole a couple of times. I then saw the remake with Anne Heche from 1998.
Mm-hmm.
And then I watched the whole TV show Bates Motel, if you've heard of that.
That sounds vaguely familiar.
Yeah, it ended 5 years ago or something. Freddie Highmore played the young Norman Bates, and I loved that show. It's basically a new take on Norman Bates. He comes from this dysfunctional family and as a teen, and how he descends into insanity, and so by the end of it, he really is the Norman that we see in this film. I sort of like those origin stories where people take a character that's established and then switch it.
Yeah.
Or maybe not switch it, but go back behind the established character and then work over to it.
Yeah.
But that's not what we do here. Here we just have a secretary, really, of sorts, who gets charged with depositing $40,000 for her boss so that a rich person can buy a house in cash money.
Yep.
And she runs off with the $40,000 with the intention of starting a new life with her boyfriend, who is having an affair on his wife with her. And
no, he's not having an affair on his wife. They're divorced.
Oh, they're divorced, but she's having an affair.
Nope, no affair.
Really?
Just extramarital hanky-panky.
Oh, well, there's the first thing I missed in the movie. You'll have to forgive me. But okay, so
because he distinctly he mentions that he's already paying alimony.
Oh yeah, that I do remember. Okay, so why did I think it was an affair? It was because they were meeting in a hotel when she should have been at work. That made me, although I got the alimony, made me think there was some kind of affair going on there.
Yeah.
But in any case, she wants to make off with her lover, to have a new life, and then, of course, eventually get married to him. And she runs off with this $40,000 and switches cars in order not to be pursued by her boss, and stops at the sort of unnoticeable, or what we might say off the beaten path, Bates Motel.
Yes.
That has a vacancy, and she meets the young Norman, played by not Anthony Hopkins. That was our last film. Anthony Perkins.
Yes.
And the rest, as they say, is history.
Yeah. It's interesting for me because this movie is so classic, and because I was aware of it, would be really interesting to get to see this movie with fresh eyes, not knowing the twist.
Okay.
Because I did know the twist going into it.
Well, yeah, and I did too, not only from having seen that actual film, but the remake and more importantly, Bates Motel got the twist quite right. Let's pretend that both of us didn't know what the twist was. And maybe we need a disclaimer in this one. Spoilers will be present. And let's just look at the following together, shall we?
Mm-hmm.
is the twist that shocking in 2022 as it would have been in 1960?
I don't think so. I think it's the comparison to me comes to the call is coming from inside the house kind of trope, right? Which has been done enough now that it's not as shocking, right? The first big shocking moment is when we find out that Mrs. Bates has been dead for 10 years, or supposedly dead for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so then it's like, okay, so what's going on here, right? I think it's interesting there because, yeah, this is the one thing that I don't like about this movie is the ending. It's just pure exposition at the end, right? Normally Alfred Hitchcock is very good at show don't tell.
Mm-hmm. This was a tell without much showing,
right? The end of this movie was a tell without much showing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that I think that was disappointing to me. I think it would have been great for us to see at some point, Norman dressed up as his mother.
But we do see it when he tries to kill
right, but we
Anne
don't know
Loomis.
it's him. Right, for us to see his face.
We do see it at the very end when he makes his last kill, and the guy whose name I'm forgetting wrestles the knife out of his hand. The wig falls off.
Oh, does it? I forgot about that. Sam Loomis.
Yeah. Well, who, by the way, the character in Halloween, Sam Loomis, is named after this Sam Lewis, I believe, from Psycho.
Right.
It was very confusing for me, by the way, when I heard Sam Loomis, because I thought, is there some meta world crossover here between Psycho and Halloween going on?
No, just an homage.
Just an homage, yeah. But we do see him. We do see him as mother in that moment. And that for me is what is still shocking. That's the only thing that's still shocking about the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, even when what's her name? The woman, her last name's Loomis. What's her name?
No, her last name isn't Loomis because she's not married to him yet.
Oh, it becomes Loomis in the second one, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Whatever her name is that I'm forgetting, she turns the corpse around.
Yeah.
And it's like it's decayed, really. It's right. Not
it's mummified.
It's mummified. That's it. Which was interesting to me because Norman is a specialist in taxidermy.
Right.
And so it was interesting that mother wasn't better preserved, which tells me he must have dug her up a few years after the fact or something.
Well, no, they say that they buried a weighted coffin, so she was never in the coffin.
Yeah, but then the question is, where was she? I mean,
in the fruit cellar.
Yeah, but Norman's a taxidermist. Why didn't he preserve her like he does all the animals?
Well, taxidermy is different than so
embalming,
yeah. So he probably did use his skills to mummify her.
Okay. So he was responsible for the mummification, because that was the other thing. I thought, would a corpse be mummified after 10 years? That's anyway, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
Getting back to what you're saying at the ending, where Hitchcock was basically tell, not show.
Yeah.
I wondered, and this was my question to you, is this movie still as shocking? I did not find that this film held up very well.
Mm.
And I actually think that about Hitchcock in general. I have found, and I've seen several of his movies. I couldn't name them all. Obviously, the only one I could think of at the moment was The Birds, but I've seen other ones. I think I saw Rear Window, and
Oh, Rear
yeah,
Window's a classic.
yeah. But that's the thing with Hitchcock. He's classic, but it's expanded so much beyond him now that it's like I have respect for him as a historical figure.
Right.
I have respect for his films as in terms of the history of film, but I don't think they're very much they don't hold so much interest for me now.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, everything else that we've watched, even Alien, which I was struggling with because it's existential, what did you call it? Existential absurdity.
Yeah.
Yeah, even though I struggle so much with that, I still think Alien holds up quite well.
Mm-hmm.
So all the other things that we've done here, I think are worth still looking at now. This one was more, I failed to see the ongoing need to see this film.
It is
Maybe this
it is an amazing exercise in cinematography.
okay. I guess this is where we get back to the different ways in which we're approaching films. Perhaps I am speaking then from a perspective of story.
Right.
I don't find the story to be, and maybe that's because I did see Bates Motel, so I'm unfairly and anachronistically judging Psycho in
Right.
ways I shouldn't. But okay, even cinematography, yes, there are some moments where there's interesting camera work.
Oh my gosh, the scene where Abstergast goes up the stairs and then is attacked and falls back down the stairs. The
I
camera
didn't
work on that is amazing.
I didn't understand that scene because it was unclear to me where Mother was coming from. I was actually frustrated with the camera work there because it didn't actually look like he was falling down the stairs.
Well, that's,
It,
I mean,
it
that was the limitation of what they were able to do at the time, right? He was strapped to a rig going downstairs,
uh,
but moving a camera downstairs in 1960. But I mean, because this is before Steadicam, right? So they have to.
right.
This is all on a big dolly rig kind of thing. That's just, whew.
Okay, but that's also kind of a historical source argument.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you're making an argument for contemporary relevance.
Um, I mean, I don't know. The 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 sh- the blood swirling down the drain. That's a classic shot. That's, I mean, maybe it is more historically relevant than contemporarily relevant, but it's a film that you have to study and understand to really understand the history of horror and thriller movies.
Yeah, I would agree to that. I would absolutely agree to that. That Psycho is essential to see, to study in some way. I actually then looked at a documentary about Psycho 2, the sequel.
Yeah.
And having looked at that documentary, came to the conclusion that Psycho 2 may be one of the only sequels worth seeing,
Hmm.
because they tried to stay as close to Hitchcock as they could, and
Right.
they even brought Anthony Perkins and not Janet Leigh, because Janet Leigh's character was killed, but the woman who survives, whose name I'm forgetting, who
Right.
becomes last name Loomis.
Right.
They brought her back, and some crew members were there, and you know, the the motel proper had to be reconstructed because the set hadn't survived, but the house had survived and it was just moved. And so, but it's the original exterior of that house. And anyway,
that's cool.
Yeah, all of that was interesting, and I began to wonder if perhaps the sequel might be the one that has some contemporary relevance, because it does deal with the stigma of mental illness,
right?
And in a way that the first movie does not. I don't think the first movie addresses that stigma at all.
No.
The first movie is more your classic crime thriller. I wouldn't even call this a horror movie, really.
No.
Although by the time of Psycho 2, it has entered into the slasher genre, and it is and that is because of Halloween and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That then Psycho 2 becomes slasher with the psychological elements. So, but that made me wonder about contemporary relevance, and my question is always, I like I like things for history's sake, history for history's sake, when I've got time to indulge in such matters. But my first question now is, what does this matter for us today? And with Psycho, I found myself saying over and over again, I mean, there are moments that are very, very well done. I thought the music was excellent in Psycho.
Well, the music is really interesting because there was a budgetary issue with the music. You might notice there's no horn section.
Yeah, it's mostly strings. Yeah,
it's all strings.
Oh, is it all strings?
It's all strings because that's all they were able to afford.
Well, that's a great achievement with just strings then.
Yeah.
In any case, I thought the music was wonderful. I thought it was, I'll give this now, it was a beautifully shot movie. It works perfect in black and white. I'm glad they didn't do it in color. It's a little shame. It's a bit of a shame, I think, that the sequel is in color. But it just works so perfectly in black and white, even though Hitchcock did that to save money, right? I mean, he didn't think that it was going to be, it was originally going to be part of his Alfred Hitchcock Presents TV show.
Yeah.
So nobody expected this thing to become what it was, this utter classic of film history. And if I wonder what you think about this, Peter. As I reflect on Psycho, if I don't look at it with my 2022 eyes and with the question of contemporary relevance, and if I try to take that lens off and instead try to think of what it would be like to sit there in 1960 and see this, this is a great film.
Oh, I know. It's amazing.
Great film.
It's great for the time. It really pushed the limits of the Hays Code.
Is that? Oh, yeah. That's that had been in place since the 30s,
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And remind our viewers what the Hays Code is.
So the Hays Code was this morality sort of rules about what you could and couldn't show in a movie, and what you could and couldn't sort of depict or talk about. That's why it's very clear that they have just made love at the beginning, but they never make reference to the fact that they've just made love at the beginning.
Oh, right. But even I think even the undergarments that Janet Leigh was wearing was pushing it for that day.
Really pushing it.
Yeah.
Really pushing it.
Yeah.
And part of why they got away with it, I think, and this goes back to um the horror genre as morality play, is because she dies.
Which gets into the, if you have sex in a horror film, you will be killed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I can see that. And also the fact that a woman is the main criminal. I think that, apart from Streetcar Named Desire, which had been filmed in the 50s, somewhere in there, I can never get the year right. I think that's unusual for that time.
No, absolutely.
And I think Hitchcock, and again, I'm trying to think of this now as what it is for its time. I think he really was a boundary pusher and someone who expanded. I mean, he does a great service to cinema. Who could deny that? I mean, I think even people who don't like him would have to admit that he was the 20th century film, at least in the middle part of it, is impossible without him.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's part of me, man, think about what he could have done if Steadicam technology had existed.
Isn't it sort of good that Steadicam technology didn't exist, though? Because look at what he could do without it.
Yeah, it forced him to be more creative. Yeah, that's true.
And what I love about Psycho is, despite the brutality, there isn't much blood.
No, really just in the shower scene.
Right? But even that, the blood is when it swirls down the drain.
Yep.
And so it's more for symbolic effect, right? Life being sucked away.
Yep.
Than gore for gore's sake.
Yes.
And that is something that later, particularly horror movies, never really got, because it came particularly frankly in light of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It becomes a blood feast.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, how much blood can you stand to watch? And Hitchcock's utter brilliance is to do this kind of film without blood. Almost entirely without blood. Psycho 2, because it comes after Texas Chainsaw Massacre, has more blood and gore in it, which is perhaps unfortunate.
Yeah. Well, it's like Halloween, right? Halloween is bloodless.
I still think there's one scene with blood on the knife, but you disagree with me on that.
We could, I haven't gone back and double checked it, but there's not the blood that you would normally expect from a slasher film like that.
Oh God no. Yeah.
So, which I think makes it on a certain level more effective. Yes. Because you're relying on the story and the camera to tell the story rather than just shock and awe.
Yes, and I, for one, tire of movies that are shock and awe. Peter, I am officially in the middle of our episode changing my mind about Psycho, because in terms of contemporary relevance, yes, it has a contemporary relevance, and I think this is it. It shows us that you don't need gore as a shock and awe.
Yeah.
To effectively tell your story. Right. You also don't need big fancy digital effects. Hitchcock did all of this with no computers, no elaborate digital, do they call them green screens now? They were blue screens for a while, and they were green screens, and I don't know, I figure we're to red screens by now, but you
can't use a red screen because there's too much red in the human skin tone.
Okay, So he did that without a blue screen. Green screen wouldn't have been invented at that point.
Yeah.
Well, and blue screen isn't going to come until what, the 90s, the late 80s?
Right. At the time, if they were going to do anything like that, it would have actually been black screen.
And what, they would paint something, or
yeah, they would literally cut it out.
Yeah. So he did all of this with such, from our 2022 standpoint, limited resources.
Absolutely.
And yet he wasn't limited at all.
No. Well, the man was a genius.
Yes. And therein lies. So now I officially thank you for giving me space, listeners, to air to struggle online here, or on air, or whatever we are. I officially think the film is both. It is a historical source that shows what movies were like entering the turbulent decade of the 1960s, and it remains important today beyond its importance as a historical source, which it undoubtedly is. No one can deny that. But the other level that it has is it is actually an argument for that can be retrieved to say the slasher genre, the psychological slasher genre, and I think we can call Psycho that, because Hitchcock is so much relying on that suspense. Doesn't
master
need
of
all
suspense, as they say.
Right. I was just thinking that the master of suspense doesn't need all this blood and gore for blood and gore's sake.
No.
And so that Psycho could be retrieved as a critique of where the horror genre has gone. That, in other words, to say there has been a misstep in recent decades. And maybe what we actually do is not repristinate Hitchcock. That would just be idolizing a dead person.
Right.
But to use Hitchcock to say, what if we step back from all of this gore and special effects? And, frankly, Peter, I just don't enjoy contemporary movies anymore. I just don't. I've looked at a lot of superhero films recently as I was trying to freshen up my German. And I was so disappointed because there were all these special effects, and all I was seeing was the colors from the special effects, whatever was going on. But I lost the tension in storytelling. I lost the beauty of a camera that was, maybe from our standpoint, not as sophisticated, but in some ways it was actually more sophisticated than what was going on now. When you have the technological ability to do less, you paradoxically can do more.
Right. And art often finds its best expressions in its limitations. Right.
And that is, and when I say I don't enjoy contemporary movies, first of all, I have to define what I mean by contemporary, because in a historical sense, anything in the last 60 years is contemporary.
Right.
But I'm not using it in that historical sense. I'm using that in more of a everyday vernacular colloquial English sense, whereas, last 5-10 years, right. In terms of mainstream Hollywood movies, I also have to put that caveat in, because I've seen some excellent independent, just truly wonderful films. One that comes to mind is called The Chorus. It's a French film from 2007. that I loved. The other one that I loved is Boyhood, which was an independent film shot from the time a kid was like 6 until he goes to college, and they literally would film him every summer for
Oh
all
wow.
those years.
Oh
And
wow.
they released it in 2014.
Okay.
And I love that movie. I had some critiques. I shared the critiques of some leftists that talked about it as white liberalism. I shared that critique in terms of a political critique, but
Right.
in terms of an achievement in what the movie did
Mm-hmm.
for such a long period of time, I thought that was genius.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to launch a blanket statement to say, well, I hate anything made in the last 10 years. No, but in terms of mainstream Hollywood films, I haven't really been moved by them, at least not never, almost never in the horror genre.
Mm-hmm.
And all the superhero stuff just got too much for me. And I missed Christopher Reeve, not him as an actor, but I'm just thinking of Superman at the moment.
Right.
I mean, it's such a fabulously filmed movie, and there's like almost no technology in it from our modern standpoint.
They used green screen in that.
Would have been blue screen, right?
No, because his suit's blue, so they probably would have been early green screen.
Ah, okay, so that means early green screen existed already in the 70s.
Well, green and blue it's always been green or blue, depending on what colors you're wearing.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought green screen was a development out of blue screen. Okay.
No. Blue it's you can go back and forth.
Okay. Well, see,
The technology is called chroma keying,
okay.
where you are able to filter
Chroma
out a
key.
specific color.
Chroma keying. Okay. The media major educates me on this. This is excellent. No, they used it, but it's a different than, for instance, Batman versus Superman, which was released whenever that was in the last
Right.
5 years or so. I did enjoy the new Wonder Woman film until they got to all the fight with her and the big bad guy, and it just, all I saw were all these zapping red and blue colors, and I don't know, I just was like, why? You know, she's a fabulous actress. I'd like to see and hear more of what she's doing as a performer than all this computer stuff. Why are you giggling at me?
Well, I mean, just because that's, like, but that's what the genre is. You know what I mean? Like that is what I'd be like, it'd be like saying I love slasher movies except for all the knives.
Well, well, that's a little unfair. I love. I don't love. Do I love slasher movies? I have to think about that. I love Nightmare on Elm Street. That's a slasher film. I love Scream. That's a slasher movie. I like Halloween. That's a slasher movie. I'm seeing a pattern, Peter.
You at least like 80s slasher movies.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel. And again, Psycho, I'm not sure that, although I may have spoken of it as in terms of a slasher film here, but I'm not sure what I think about that as a genre, because I just don't. At some point, it becomes all about the blood.
Mm-hmm.
Like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I feel the same way about Texas Chainsaw Massacre as I do about The Matrix. And here it is. It's 2 hours of my life I can't get back. I mean,
oh man, I loved The Matrix when it came out. I haven't revisited it in a number of years, but I loved it when it came out.
oh, don't stress yourself. It's not worth it. I watched it when it came out. I didn't like it then. I don't really remember it but I did see it, but I didn't really like it. And I watched it last year, and I went, please, dear Lord God, give me those 2 hours back. Why did I watch this?
No, you don't like the Plato's Cave allegory or the allegories for transness in it?
I don't like all the effects. The effects for me get in the way of the story.
Oh man. See, as a film person, like as a film major, as a person who like is into the technical stuff, the
Mm.
bullet time effects were just, how they did that was amazing, because they did it with still cameras. It wasn't a film camera panning around Keanu Reeves. It was, they
Mm.
literally set up like 100 photograph, like still cameras, and timed them.
Wow. Okay, that's fascinating. That's fascinating. Um, but that makes the technique fascinating. It doesn't mean I like the movie.
That's fair, but that, no, the technique is amazing and fascinating, and um but then they got away from that in the second and third movies,
No,
which
that's
is
right.
what's disappointing about them.
There are all these sequels too, and I just, as the one guy in Scream 2, whose name I never can remember, is it Randy or something like that? He soon gets stabbed to death after he says this, but he says the following: sequels suck. And he's got a point, and then of course he gets murdered, or stabbed, as the case may be.
Yes.
But you make a great movie. And The Matrix is a great movie. I don't like it. I want my 2 hours back. But The Matrix, in a certain sense, if you're not me, is a great movie.
Mm-hmm.
See, I can acknowledge even things that even things I don't like are great. Okay. So, great film. Why does somebody have to come along and try to make a sequel? Every movie we have watched so far and discussed has been a great film.
Yes.
In some way, shape, or form, and it was genre changing, and they're all great.
Yes.
And then comes the sequels.
Money, money.
Which is what you always.
Money.
Okay. That's the third time you've sung that stupid song. I want a better answer than that.
There isn't a better answer than that. That's why sequels are made, is to make money.
But I don't think when Wes Craven made Scream 2, I don't think Craven was out for the money.
No, but the studio was. You wouldn't have been allowed to make Scream 2 if the studio didn't think it would make money.
The only one of the Screams that I don't like. So here's a place where I guess I do like the sequels, but I think that's because Craven was always directing them. So there was, and the cast. I mean, the cast is all in continuity for those. The only one I didn't like was Scream 4. Well, I mean, I didn't like it as much because I felt like Craven was a little bit, well, he's done it before, he's sort of, it's a little old now. I mean, it's not quite there, but it's getting there. And well, he died soon after anyway, God rest his soul. And I don't know about you, but the day that Wes Craven died, I legitimately mourned, like legitimately. And now they got a Scream 5 coming out, and of course I'm going to go see it. You know, this is what these people do. I'm going to go see it. And I'm going to sit there and just to say I did it, suffered through it.
Yep.
Why is this being made? In all actuality, Scream 4 didn't really need to be made. The first three you could actually that's a trilogy you could almost justify.
Okay.
But the fourth, and now the fifth, without Wes Craven, what is Scream? I mean, the cast is coming back, so that's why I'll look at it. But without him, it's no point. I mean, he changed yet again because he changed it like 3 times. He changed the horror genre with that again. And now he's not there. What's the point of doing it?
To make
is
money.
My question. Oh, Jim. What happened to art?
I mean, art's always been about money.
Art is about art for the sake of the artists.
I mean,
What?
there are a lot of commissions in the Renaissance.
Okay, yeah, people have to pay their bills, but come on, Bach didn't write the fabulous music he wrote solely for money. He
Not
couldn't have. He
solely,
died in
not
poverty.
solely for. I'm not saying people are doing this solely for money, but they are doing it for money. And Bach did take commissions,
That's true. I mean, well, he had to live on something.
right?
Um, but what about art for art's sake? I mean, this is where it's funny. In my theological work, I don't believe in art for art's sake, but in this medium, I do. Um, you know,
Art for art's sake is how you end up dying poor and penniless, like Van Gogh.
and revered as one of the greatest artists in history. Last time I checked,
Right, but he didn't get to enjoy any of it in his lifetime, really.
he probably didn't do it to enjoy it himself. He did it for other people.
I know, but what I'm saying is that art for art's sake leads to starving artists.
I really hate it when you're right. Okay, so you won't let me have my art for art's sake argument, although I do think there is some of that. That for me, when I watch a film, and this is why I don't like so many of the big Hollywood films that have come out recently, I really want to see great art,
right?
In some case, and maybe this goes all the way back to The Omen. So viewers, if you haven't seen our review of The Omen, go look at it. You had problems with the story in that one.
I did.
I still think that is art. I still think, yeah, all right. In the intervening months, I've been thinking about The Omen a little bit, and I can see where you're coming from, apart from what I said in our review then. So I have reserved the right to change my mind, and Peter, to convince me through argumentation that perhaps I was wrong, or maybe not wrong, but just not seeing that particular aspect of it. But I would say that movie is still a work of art. It's maybe not the best work of art. I mean, if I compared The Omen to another excellent Wes Craven film that's not a horror film, it stars Meryl Streep, Music of the Heart.
Oh, okay.
If I compared those two films, I would, through my aesthetic tastes, say Music of the Heart is better.
Yeah.
But I would still put The Omen in the category of art.
Okay.
I would, even though I don't like it personally, put The Matrix in that category even. It's a very postmodern nonsense kind of art, but it's art. I can't, given the choice between The Matrix or the recent superhero movies, perhaps Wonder Woman is an exception, because that really was epoch making, that particular actor had been cast to play her.
Yeah.
I would still pick The Matrix. And I guess the larger question here then is, what is art?
And absolutely.
And is there a way to judge what art is? What would you say? I mean,
well, this is one of the great philosophical questions of all time, right?
Yes, I know. That's why I raised it.
What is art? I think art is, gosh, it's such a hard question. And it's one I struggle with too, right? Like, how do we decide what is and isn't art? He said, looking at his calendar of custom made guitars that I would consider to be art.
Yeah, sure. I would too.
But I know lots of people who no, it's just a guitar. Guitars can't be art, because some people will say that art. I've heard one definition of art is basically saying it's purely aesthetic, can't be functional.
Well, that would be a definition of art for art's sake, wouldn't it?
Um, yeah, or but paintings aren't functional; they're purely aesthetic.
But what if the function is how the person that views it is moved?
Well, but what I'm saying is like there are people who say that so like I think that I would argue that high-end supercars could be argued to be art.
Well, they certainly would have an aesthetic charm.
Right.
I more wanted you to tell me what movies you thought were art, Peter.
Well, I think almost all movies are art.
No, then there must be good art and bad art.
Well, yeah, there is good art and bad art. Not all art is good.
Yeah, but why have it if it's not good?
Do you want me to sing the song again?
No, don't torture me so. But I guess what I ask myself is, why do people watch these things? I mean, I just can't get it through my head. And
Because
I'm
it's
not
fun. Kate and I went and saw The Lost City yesterday afternoon. Not last night, yesterday afternoon. And that movie is dumb. It is so dumb. It is gloriously dumb.
Okay.
We loved it. It was great. It was fun.
But if you know it's dumb.
Oh, and the movie knows it's dumb. That was the best part. I love that. I love when a dumb movie knows it's dumb.
But I mean, okay, I can get behind the following. I watch a dumb movie that I know is dumb. For starters, it's a great way to help improve my everyday German. Not
right.
to say, because you learn vocabulary in that way that you're going to use on the street. You know, right? You're not. It's sort of like in English. We're not speaking Shakespeare English with each other, right? So that's what I mean by that. If you watch a movie that's not the German Shakespeare, you're going to learn the language better. But aside from that pragmatic question, why, if a movie knows it's and I'm not even sure what you mean by dumb movie, so I'd have to, can you give me a more well-known example of a dumb movie?
Well, any of the Ernest movies.
I don't know what those are.
Oh man. Let me think of other dumb movies. Gosh. I mean, lots of comedies are just dumb movies.
What, like Austin Powers?
Yeah.
Oh Lord. And see, but there are great comedies. Or at least a lot of fun comedies. What's the Vegas Vacation, where the cat gets fried when they turn on the Christmas tree?
That's Christmas Vacation, not Vegas
Christmas,
Vacation.
that's it. Christmas Vacation. I think that's hilarious. Wait a minute. The cat gets fried and I think it's hilarious. Wait, sorry. No. Rewind. No, didn't mean that. But no, I don't think it's hilarious. I find it amusing.
Yeah. But like, so, Leslie Nielsen movies are pretty dumb in a great, fun, self-aware way.
Oh my gosh, Dracula Dead and Loving It. He raises himself out of the coffin. Up, 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 and smack. Right. I must move the coffin.
Right. So that's a dumb movie, and it's fun and it's great and it's aware that it's dumb.
I didn't think it was aware that it was dumb. I obviously it's a spoof on Dracula. It's a spoof on Bela Lugosi. It's a direct spoof on Bela Lugosi's Dracula. But I didn't think it was aware that I wouldn't have called it dumb necessarily.
Okay, I don't know. Like Airplane. Have you ever seen Airplane?
No, but I'm just the title of it tells me I'm probably not going to want to.
Well, it's another Leslie Nielsen movie about an airplane. Hey, it's a dumb movie. It is a really dumb movie, but it knows that it's dumb and it's hilarious.
Okay, but my question remains: why watch that?
Because it's hilarious and it's just enjoyable. It's just fun.
Didn't you enjoy Psycho? I very much enjoyed Psycho, even though I spent the first
I
part
know,
of our
but
episode struggling with it.
I enjoy it in a different way. It's, mindless amusement.
But now my question is, can't you watch Psycho in a mindless way?
I mean, you probably can, but I can't.
Well, I apparently can't either, but okay, it's mindless. But when these films that are mindless are made, films, TV shows, hell, music, while we're at it, doesn't that somehow decrease the value of other films that are not mindless but are actually made to engage you in mind and heart?
How? Why would that decrease the value of those films? That's like saying that my son's drawing of the Quacken, a tentacled duck, decreases the value of the Mona Lisa.
Well, first of all, I wouldn't. I think that's a bit of an unfair comparison. Number one, but number two, I think it's unfair because what I'm saying is when there are so many movies on the market, your son isn't publishing or putting out his drawing of this tentacled duck, and I don't think that
not yet.
Well, not yet. Maybe he will, and that's an expression of his creativity. So maybe, and he's not driven by monetary interests, right? He's creating it because he wants to. I don't think he's getting an extra allowance from you for doing it.
No.
Exactly. So I don't think that's the same thing. I think in my question about all of this is so driven by capitalism that is it even possible to really make good art anymore when money is the driving factor?
Well, this is what I've been saying though. Money has always been the driving factor, even in good art. The Mona Lisa was a commission.
You're not going to tell me
the Sistine Chapel was a commission. The beautiful paintings of the Sistine Chapel that wouldn't have existed if the Pope hadn't been like, Michelangelo, my man, I'm gonna pay you a ton of money to paint my ceiling.
Paint my ceiling. Well, that's one way to talk about it, I guess. But okay. Money has always been a driving factor, maybe.
At least since the Renaissance.
At least since look at that. Coinciding with the birth of early capitalism is money being the driving factor for art. Isn't that something? So my question, now that we are officially in late stage capitalism, is there a way out of this wherein, because I think it's out of balance right now. Money for mainstream entertainment. Money is such a driving force that I just think the art gets lost in the finances.
Well, film has always been that way because it's expensive to make a movie.
But music from classic to pop is all driven by money now. It's all about finances.
It's a lot about finances, but you have independent artists like, Macklemore did an independent release.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, all of Macklemore's stuff has been entirely independent. He doesn't have a record label.
I see now that
I don't
that
think he
may
even has
be
a manager. He might have a manager now, but he didn't at first.
So that could be the future then, and in that case, when artists themselves get more creative control, right? And this is the other thing I don't like: when money drives the show, it stifles what the artist can do creatively, because it's money in the control booth rather than the artists involved with making the art. The wrong people are in the control booth at the moment.
Right. No, absolutely.
And with Psycho, Hitchcock was still in control.
Yeah.
And
Well,
that's what
but
makes
go ahead.
that's what makes that movie great art.
Right, but Hitchcock had the gravitas, the sort of experience, the success behind him to be able to do that. It's like Spielberg can do whatever he wants, and get away with it because he's Spielberg.
I tend to
Spielberg
like
is in
his
control of his own movies.
I think I like his early stuff better than his later stuff because he wasn't Spielberg yet.
Well, that's fine, but I'm just saying that's just an example of someone who has the same sort of, or Scorsese. Scorsese can do whatever he wants now.
But those people can do whatever they want, but somehow they themselves have become trapped in this capitalist system. I think so. And there's something raw and wonderful about Jaws that current Spielberg pales in comparison to. I'm trying to think what was the last Spielberg movie you watched? I'm trying to think was the last one I watched.
Oh gosh, it's been ages since I watched a Spielberg movie.
The last one I watched is actually one I really like, which is Schindler's List. I think that's an excellent movie.
I can just see that. That's a classic. I don't like crying though, so that's why I haven't watched that movie.
Oh, okay. We'll skip that one here then.
I think the last Spielberg movie I saw was Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Lord Jesus.
Speaking of blatant cash grabs.
So, I mean, I'm of two minds here, right? On the one hand, I really love great film. I really do. I'm trying to learn how to watch them better by doing this thing with you. On the other hand, I hate film. Yeah. Because it has become so mass marketed, so mass produced, and so driven by the box office rate that the last Hollywood movie I saw that I loved was the Batman trilogy that now is obsolete because what's his name from Twilight is playing Batman, Robert Pattinson.
So you really like the Christopher Nolan trilogy?
Oh, I love the Michael Keaton first two Batmans from the 90s. Those are actually my Batman Returns even more than Batman the movie from 1989.
Oh, interesting.
No, I love Batman Returns. That's I think that's an excellent film. Tim Burton is such a neat director. All the blues that he uses, the blue color, almost like my shirt. Yeah, that kind of a blue, and it makes it feel like Nightmare Before Christmas meets Batman. Oh, it's just fabulous. And Michelle Pfeiffer is the best Catwoman in the history of the mythology, I think.
I would make a strong argument for Eartha Kitt, but I have a special place in my heart for Eartha Kitt.
Eartha Kitt from the 60s Batman with Adam West.
Right, the first season or two before they replaced her with a white woman.
Yeah, with Lee Merriweather was after. Yeah, okay. Well, that's a question about the 60s Batman, and I loved the 60s Batman as a kid. But I think Burton, just the mystique that he had with did he direct Batman the movie in 89 as well?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, okay. So yeah, those two are really my favorites. But there's this new Batman that's coming out, or that is out, at least it's out here in Germany. I don't know if it's out in the States. It's been out for a week or two, and of course I'm going to go see it, Peter.
Yeah.
I'm going to go see it. Of course I am. I mean, this is what they do to me. I'm going to go see it. Or maybe I'll wait till it comes out on video. Well, we don't have video anymore, but you know, comes out on
or whatever.
Out on something. Yeah. I'm going to go sit there and see it, and I'm going to complain internally the whole time, and I'm going to be mindlessly entertained for a few hours, and I'm going to say what happened to the greatness that was Batman, and then I'm going to leave the theater and be able to say that I saw the movie.
There you go.
And what I love, though, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe this movie, maybe I'll come back and say to you, Peter, I was blown away by this film, absolutely blown away. It's possible. I'm open to that. I'm open to having my mind changed. I try to always be open to having my mind changed. Doesn't always work, but I try.
Right.
My hunch is, though, my gut feeling on this is that it's going to be the former thing that I suggested, which is I will go see it. I will sit there and I will go, oh, good Lord. And then I'll leave the movie theater and I can say, well, like every other person in the world, I saw this movie, or at least most every other person.
Right.
And I will go home and sulk and long for great art.
There you go. And on that note, we should wrap it up.
Yes, we should. Next time, we will try something completely different from what we have looked at.
Oh, man.
And we will watch a classic action movie from the 1990s, which, Peter, I don't know if you've seen or not. Air Force One with Harrison Ford.
Yes.
Because if I have
Get
to
off
watch
my plane.
Exactly. You have seen it. You have seen it. So we are entering into the realm of action mystery.
Yes.
And it's a great film. I used to have it on Laserdisc. Of
course you did.
Well, I love it. It's a great film.
No, but also you and Laserdisc.
Yeah, I had like 50 Laserdiscs. If I hadn't have packed up and gone to seminary and then moved continents, I probably would have 400 Laserdiscs by now. I am a Laserdisc person. So anyway, I used to have it on Laserdisc. Great Laserdisc too. One of the I had a very nice edition of it. And so we'll look at Air Force One next week, or in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So until next time, I'm Brach Jennings.
I'm Peter Clark.
And this is Intercontinental Media.
You're not gonna